What's up, team? The Centaur Inyang here. Fuck. Anyway, workout footage is gonna be going like usual. Busted lip, try not to pay attention to it. Trust me, it's not herpes. I don't play those games. Also, I don't have chapstick, so my lips from time to time this video are gonna look like Tyrone Biggums. I'm sorry, I have cracked lips today. I have a massive pimple right here. Again, try not to pay attention to these things, and hopefully we can just look eye to eye. And yeah, just remember, in the comment section of this video, post your questions for Centaur Q&A number 6 coming next week. Also remember, Centaurformfix@gmail.com for the Form Fix series that's gonna be coming up hopefully this week. And yeah, let's start the Q&A. So the Hepburn method. I actually saw this a long time ago when I was scouring the internet for programs when I was younger. The Hepburn, I forgot his first name, but this guy, I'll put his name up there. He was a strongman, and he made a kind of compound hypertrophy program back in the day. Actually, it wasn't even that long ago, or a crazy amount of time ago, but he made a strength hypertrophy program. And this is the funny thing, because we think that DUP, undulated periodization, is some kind of new concept, but it's not. Like this guy, I believe that on certain days you're doing 7 or 8 sets of 2 with really low percentages, and then you would have, after those sets, you would be working with multiple sets of maybe 6s or 7s. So you'd have your power work, and then you'd have your hypertrophy work on the same day, and then over the weeks you just progressively overloaded. You'd increase the load up until you hit a PR. The whole point of this program was to be fairly not super low intensity. Actually, yeah, it was supposed to be fairly low intensity, so that you, at least in the beginning of the program, so that you would be able to get the movement mechanics down. And as you worked up to heavier weight, your mechanics were solid enough that you could work with loads at 90, 95, and actual 100% loads. I think that's still a good program, and I think that it's good, but one thing that you'd want to take into account is this. We know that ideally, whenever we move the load, okay, that we want to make sure that we're keeping our mechanics on point, right? So you don't need to work, I think the program called for 70% for 8 sets of 2. You know, you don't need to work with that lower percentage, but you can maybe work with 80, 85% for sets of 2, and that should be something that's very manageable. The idea behind that whole training program was that you don't need to work with extremely heavy loads to get stronger. And although that's true, you can definitely work with heavier loads than that program calls for. So I'm also in that belief that you don't always need to work with super heavy loads to continue to gain strength over time. Some people work with RPE 9, 10 loads for multiple weeks before they test, and I don't really think that's necessary. So overall, it's a good program, although I think that it could do with a little bit more consistent, higher intensity loads. To be honest, I would like to see your squat, so if you can, send me that. I would say, you know, if your knee is starting to hurt above 85% loads, I'd suggest that you maybe limit the amount of knee flexion you have in your squat. That's actually something that I have to do personally, because it's not that I can't get to those places. I can get there because I have good mobility, but my left knee, especially since I've had knee problems since I was younger, whenever I get into really deep knee flexion, there's a little bit of pain there. And it's not because of immobility, it's not because of muscle tightness, it's just because I have that problem in my left knee. So I have to limit my amount of knee flexion that I have at the bottom of the squat, and I have to really focus it into the hips. So I'd suggest maybe send me that footage so I can kind of see how your squat looks. I don't want to get in the way of your coach, to be honest, but I'm just curious to see how it looks. And then we can see if maybe you just need to start limiting the amount of knee flexion you have in your squat, and keep it fairly hip dominant. Maybe you widen your stance a tad or whatever. You know, we can't always squat the way that looks optimal if we have issues like knee issues, or sometimes for some people it's hamstring issues. We have to squat in a different way to keep ourselves safer. So send that footage over so I can take a look, and I'll get back to you. So, I mean, the first thing that came out to me, and I'm sorry to say this, 36 years old. We do know that as we get older, especially men, your metabolic rate starts to slow down a tad. And also, your ability to break down carbs and utilize it as energy also kind of depletes, so you can't really handle as many carbs as you used to, even with the same amount of expenditure. So you might need to take that into account. Maybe you need to lower your total intake a little bit and keep your expenditure the same, so you can keep your body composition. Because what I probably say, and I think a safe guess, is that a majority of this is potentially fat that's being gained. If everything has remained the same up until this point, a majority of it is probably fat, and that's just because you're aging. You know, it's something that's gonna happen to us, it's probably gonna happen to me, and there's a hard realization that you probably can't handle more food. So either you take away from your food a little bit, primarily your carbohydrate intake. I would suggest that you keep your fats not super high, but maybe in the 60, 70 range. Lower your carbs a bit, or start doing a little bit more work in the gym, whether that's more cardio or whether that's more lifting. That should help you out. So I've done a lot of things when I was younger to try and increase my grip strength. I did a lot of farmer's walks. That's actually how I got my farmer's walks. When I did those, and I started doing them because I watched an Elliot Hulse video back when I was like 18. I started doing them because he was like, when I do farmer's walks, my traps blow up. And I was like, I want bigger traps. So I started doing farmer's walks instead of doing a lot of shrugs, and my traps blew up. Farmer's walks, if you don't know, is when you grab 2 of the heaviest dumbbells you could find, and then you can walk back and forth in the gym. And I'm being absolutely serious. My traps just fucking would not stop growing. So I don't do them anymore. I don't want bigger traps at this point. But I'd suggest farmer's walks because not only will your traps grow, but also you have to keep you have to keep gripping that heavy load. I'd also suggest working with a double overhand grip on maybe stiff leg deadlifts or RDLs, and using not hook grip, but double overhand. That should help your grip strength too. Yeah, there's something else. If you grab a plate and you hold it in your fingers, this is something that actually Mark brought up to me. Grab a weight, hold it in your fingers, and maybe do 5 to 7 second holds with the heaviest weight you can manage. Do that for multiple sets of maybe 3 to 5. You could do that. And then lastly, rack pulls with the double overhand grip with the heaviest weight you can manage. 5 second holds. I actually did this in a video in the past. That is also very, very good for the grip. Double overhand, heavy rack pulls. So there's multiple things you can do to help strengthen your grip. If you have the Rolling Thunder at your disposal, I had that in the video last week. It's actually the thumbnail of the Centaur Q&A number 4. You can also do those, but most people don't really have access to a Rolling Thunder. So this is an interesting question. What bicep and tricep exercises would I recommend? When it comes to the biceps, there's a ton of movements. Supinated bicep curls, which is your typical standing bicep curls, cable curls because of the constant tension. What I would recommend is this: whatever movements you choose, okay? Because there really isn't a bad, well, there are some stupid bicep movements, but I mean, generally, there aren't horrible bicep movements and there aren't really horrible tricep movements. But I would say this: the biggest things you want to think about if you're really trying to grow your arms is the frequency of which you train your biceps and triceps. A lot of people that do bro splits maybe do these body parts 1 time per week, but if you can increase that frequency to 2, sometimes even 3 times per week that you're working your biceps and triceps, you'll see much more growth in a shorter amount of time. So there should be some days where you're working with your bicep loads or whatever, and bicep and tricep loads between the 6 to 10 or maybe 8 to 12 rep range, and you're focusing in that rep range for all of your movements on those days. And then you'll have another day where maybe you're working, again, undulating rep ranges. Another day where you'll work with more isolation movements. So these are isolation movements, but let's say on one day you did a supinated bicep curl for 8 to 12 reps. Your second bicep exercise was a cable bicep curl for 8 to 12 reps. And your third exercise was a concentration curl, okay, for maybe 10 to 12 reps. That was one day of bicep work. On another day of bicep work, let's say that you have a preacher curl. You work that with 12 to 15 reps. And then you have a single arm cable bicep curl. And you work that between 12 to 16, 15 to 18 reps. And then you have maybe some incline dumbbell bicep curls for 15 to 18 reps. See, there's different modalities and different rep ranges on those days. Maybe you have a third day where, again, you stick in the higher rep ranges, or you maybe stick in the 8 to 12, 8 to 14 rep range. But the main thing is that you want different days where you're training in different rep ranges. That'll help with different types of hypertrophy that happen in those rep ranges, and that'll make sure that you're getting enough frequency and enough volume in your arms so that they'll actually grow. Don't make the mistake of, if you're actually trying to grow your arms in different body parts, don't make the bodybuilder mistake of doing them 1 time per week. Increase your frequency and you'll probably grow more. So tip number 1, don't choose weights that are too heavy. Ideally, if it's your first meet, your goal should be going for 9 out of 9. So if you're the former 1 rep max in training is 250 pounds on your bench press. Don't try and go for 270 or 75 pounds on your meet. Go for a conservative PR. Go for maybe 260 or 265 pounds, depending on how your training has been. Let's say number 2. The majority of people that bomb out of meets bomb out because their first attempt was way too fucking heavy. That means that your first attempt should be something that honestly you can manage for 3 to 4 reps on any training day. Okay, you don't want to miss your first attempt, and you don't want your first attempt to be something that's 92 or 93% of your actual 1 rep max. If that's the case, then you won't really have too much room for numbers on your second and third attempt. The reason why I suggest that you keep the first attempt conservative is because it gives you enough energy in the tank so that you can do a solid second attempt, and who knows, your second attempt might be a PR depending on how your first attempt felt, and then you can potentially go for a good PR on your third attempt. Ideally though, remember, you should be aiming for 9 out of 9. If you're not, maybe 7 out of 9, but you don't want to bomb out. This is what I was talking about the other day. I don't get how people bomb out of meets because if you're smart, your first attempt should be an easy triple. Seriously. So that meet day, stay hydrated. Make sure to bring a lot of water with you. Make sure to bring some food with you, especially depending on how long meets run. Because remember, it's your flight, then a bunch of other flights, then you're coming back for the bench and the deadlift after that. So you want to have like maybe Cliff Bars, some carbs, some water on you, some Gatorade. Let's just stay fed and stay hydrated. And between all of your attempts, take a seat, take a rest. So that you're not, on your feet too much and you're feeling tired. But yeah, those are some of my suggestions for meet day. So you guys know that I do Ram Wad every single day. Check it out, ramwad.com. Great stretching routines every single day of the week. I do Ram Wad so I can stay flexible. But the thing about this is that if you're a true strength athlete, let's say you're someone who's trying to become, world champ or whatever. Chances are that, a lot of them aren't doing a lot of stretching. And that's because generally a lot of them want to stay really tight, they want to be compact. But I personally believe that if you don't stretch enough and you remain very, very inflexible, that can lead to a lot of future injuries and a lot of future joint issues because a lot of muscle tightness, especially in the shoulders and the chest, can lead to tearing muscles. And that's why I stay fairly loose, so I don't really have that risk forming. So I wouldn't suggest that you stretch directly before you work out. So not any type of stretching for like a minute 30. Don't do that much stretching. Mobility work, yes. And even the mobility work that you do prior to workout shouldn't be as intense as the mobility work that you typically do after you work out, holding positions for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. You shouldn't be doing that prior. But definitely after working out, or if you want to do your stretches in the morning and then you're working out in the afternoon or evening, you can definitely do that. But if you stretch directly before you work out, I do believe as a strength athlete and a power athlete, it will kind of hamper your force production on that day. I'll say this though, I came into the gym today and I pulled 705 for 3. I stretched probably, I think about 2 hours before that, and I was fine and strong today. So you just want to make sure that it's not right before. Okay, 2-3 hours beforehand, go ahead, but you don't want to make it right before, as in part of your warm-ups for your working sets. You want to be doing more explosive type movements, hip thrusting. Just even sometimes jumps could help with force production. But stretching right before you do like heavy work, squats, deadlifts, bench, not the greatest idea. So this is, I wouldn't know if it's a technique issue for you since I don't know what your technique looks like, but generally when it comes to knee cracking, that usually is a problem because the cartilage is starting to run down in your knees. And if it's painful, then it's a problem that you need to get checked out. So if it's cracking and it hurts, that's an issue. If it's cracking and it doesn't hurt at all, you're perfectly okay. I have the same issue. I've had the same issue since I was actually 14 and 15. My knees, when I would go down into a squat, would crack, but I didn't feel any type of pain and I was kind of scared. It's just because, there's a little bit of not bone on bone action, but there's not a lot or a serious amount of cartilage in there. And it's not like it's running down, just you don't have a lot there. So you're gonna hear sounds there. Again, if it's not painful, you're okay. But if you feel pain when you're getting into those positions, you have an issue and you need to go see a professional. This is the end of the Q&A, everybody. Thanks for your questions. Remember, Centaurformfix@gmail.com if you want to send over a video so I can go and take a look at your form for that video series that's going to be coming up soon. If you have any questions for the Q&A that's going to be coming next week, ask them in the comment section below. And I believe that is all. Thank you again. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you for watching these videos. I hope these videos help you out. If you have video suggestions, go ahead and leave them below. I do have a Slack series coming up, but that's going to be coming a little bit later. Either way, this is Nsima the Centaur Inyang from Break the Bar. Be an anomaly, be different, and I'll talk to all of you very, very soon.